Welcome to I Drink Your Podcast, where we drink and talk about movies from 2007.
Can't stop what's coming.
So, cool beans.
Cool beans.
Mixing his character and his real name. Okay.
We have fun.
How about a suicide pact?
What are you trying to be, an Irish R&B singer?
Oh, it's because he's 60 years old. 60 years old. The alcohol's working.
We need water.
I drink your podcast. I drink it up.
Welcome back to another episode of I Drink Your Podcast. I am Matt, and I am ready to talk to you guys about Alvin and the Chipmunks today. But before we get
Alvin?
Before we get started, folks, let's do a little housekeeping. If you haven't yet, please leave us a review on iTunes and rate us 5 stars. And if your name is Robert Jordan 1, thank you so much for your very hilarious Gatorade online review. We hope you find Gatorade. If you want to message us and email us, I Drink Your Podcast. What's the email, Ben?
I Drink Your Podcast at gmail.com.
Yeah, go ahead and leave us your address and we will send you a Gatorade and check out his review. It's very funny.
Only one singular Gatorade? Is that what you're promising?
Yeah, it'll be a big, actually it might be small, but who knows what we will send you. But we will send you Gatorade. You are very funny. Funnier than me. But you guys help us grow, and we appreciate you guys taking the time to help us grow and review us and share us with your friends that love movies. So if you haven't noticed, I'm already drunk.
Well, that's the point of this.
Right. I've had a full glass and a half of wine. Joining me this week talking about Alvin and the Chipmunks is going to be Ben, Emily, and Wes. What are you guys drinking?
Yeah, I've got a rum and Coke in front of me because this movie does not deserve creativity.
Sure.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
See, I was really excited for my creativity because Corbin made waffles this morning. So I garnished my cream soda that I made with this maple and bourbon liqueur or simple syrup. I don't know what it is. But he made a cream soda and I garnished it with a piece of waffle for this movie.
I don't think I've ever seen a waffle garnish before, and I cannot tell you how much that made me happy.
It looks like one of those Bloody Marys that come with like an entire cheeseburger
Except with
attached
waffles.
to them, except it's a waffle.
I'm drinking an amaretto sour because chipmunks like nuts, and amaretto is a nut, I think. I'm pretty sure.
Sure.
It's not flavored, yeah.
Yeah, nut flavor, which is what we're all after.
Aren't we all? Yep.
Matt, what kind of wine are you drinking?
Oh, I've got a Cabernet Sauvignon. Because I'm a sommelier. Listen,
Sommelier for all those people listening
Thank
that
you.
are getting frustrated.
Yeah. Before I had a green tea and honey because my voice was also hurt, just like Alvin and the Chipmunks. But we don't assume any of you have seen this movie. I don't think we anticipate any of you have seen this movie.
Please don't see this movie.
Right.
And I'm sorry if you watched this movie in preparation for this podcast.
Yeah, you're a true fan. But let's just get into the episode. So Wesley's favorite band is Nickelback, and they have a song called Photograph. And Ben, you were
Ouch.
recently looking through some old photographs.
They are not my favorite band, by the way. I don't want the fact that fact lived in the world for even 5 seconds made me very upset.
Ben, go ahead and tell us about these old photographs you found.
Yeah, so I was looking through some old photographs with my parents, and I came across one of myself and my 2 brothers dressed as the Alvin and the Chipmunks.
No way.
Yeah, I was 3 years old. I was Simon, which, for those who know me, I am definitely a Simon.
Especially compared to his brothers.
Yes,
And I'm assuming you are the one that wears glasses, right? None of them wear glasses.
one of them does, but he
God, I
prefers
was trying to
contacts.
help you.
Yeah, sorry, no. But then my youngest brother, he was under 1 at the time, and he's in like a little Alvin costume. And then my middle brother, who was 1.5, he had the Theodore costume on, and it made me think of all the fun costumes my mom used to make for us because we did not grow up with a lot of money. So she sewed and made all of our costumes. And when I was 4, I was the Ninja Turtles.
All of them?
Well, I was one of them. I wasn't all.
Did you guys get a 4th brother to fill out the crew?
We did not.
You could have recruited me. I had a homemade Ninja Turtle costume as well.
Did you? Were you Raphael? Because that's the one we needed.
No, I mean, she didn't give me the bandana. She just had the backpack. That was the turtle shell.
Yeah.
She didn't go crazy.
What are some costumes that you guys have worn when you were little?
My parents didn't really buy us costumes or make us costumes. We just kind of took whatever we had lying around the house and suddenly became something else. There were a couple times that my grandma or great grandma made a costume from years ago. So there was like a clown costume that we all shared and a parrot costume that we all shared. It was like this big poofy thing. And so there are lots of pictures of me and my other 2 sisters where it's like, wait, which one is this? Is this Emily, Kelly, or Renee? Because we all wore the same costumes over and over again.
A rite of passage.
I didn't share my costume with other people, but I also wore my costume multiple years. I got a lot of mileage out of it. I think I wore it at least 2 or 3 times. And my favorite costume was Santa Claus for Halloween.
Oh.
Which it was perfect because if it got cold, you just stuff some more pillows in there. As the night went on, my costume got more accurate as my bag of toys filled up with more candy. And my favorite part about it, which looking back on, it's pretty stupid, but also super on brand for me. Instead of saying trick or treat, when I rang people's doorbells, I would say Merry Christmas.
That's really funny.
I have to assume made at least a couple parents' nights, like, you know, throwing in some difference in their monotonous candy giving.
Yeah, no, that's good. I like that.
Yeah.
Child Santa Claus is fantastic.
Oh, it was awesome.
So I just realized that I think 2007 was my last Halloween that I went out trick-or-treating with my friends. I was in 8th grade, and I definitely remember one of my friends dressed up as a duct tape witch. Literally, she used duct tape to make her costume, and that was it. It was like orange and gray. And I had this old dress. I don't know where we got it from, but it basically looked like something out of the Addams Family, this big poofy dress. And actually, it now lives at our school bin because I brought it in for a costume for someone, and now it's just staying there. But I went as like a dead prom queen or something, and I remember getting to a house and seeing a cute guy from like a year older than me, and I was like, do you want to go to prom with me? And then I like bared my teeth and ran away.
Did he say yes?
He never looked at me again after that. I definitely remember seeing him at school, and he would not look at me.
It sounds like he didn't say no. I liked that you brought that up, Emily, because I want to ask you guys, what is too old to trick or treat? Because I think 8th grade is the cutoff. If you come to my house and you're older than, you know, say 15, 16, I'm just like, get the fuck out of here. You know? What do you think?
I don't know if there's an age where I would say you have to stop trick-or-treating. Like, I think as long as you're out having fun and you're being safe, like if you're 22 and you come to my door, I'm going to give you candy.
Yeah, I would too.
I hate
In fact,
that.
I sometimes stand outside of my house just with candy, asking people to come inside. And
It's not even Halloween.
no, it's not.
Matt, did you say your costume?
Yeah, I had a homemade Ninja Turtle costume as well.
Okay.
And I wore it not even when it was Halloween. It was a fun little backpack that my mom kind of designed.
Now, that's twice you've said that it's just a backpack. I'm concerned you didn't have a costume and you just wore a backpack for Halloween.
I mean, you couldn't put stuff in the shell. I mean, how cool would that be? I mean, that would be really, you know, ergonomical. Is that the right word? I mean, it would just make sense
Functional.
for the, yeah,
You mean
functional.
economical.
Economic. I don't know that I mean that.
Sommelier.
So if you guys are unfamiliar with our podcast, during the first half of the show, we will be discussing and reviewing Alvin and the Chipmunks, unfortunately. And the second half will feature the championship in our Battle of Twits tournament, a creative competition between Ben and Emily inspired by the movie. I'm excited for that later. But we are talking about Alvin and the Chipmunks, unfortunately.
Let's get through the hard part first.
Yeah, for sure. A child's movie made for 5-year-olds. Anyway, okay, so this movie was directed by Tim Hill, and it features Jason Lee, David Cross, Cameron Richardson, and Justin Long voicing Alvin.
And Jane Lynch, who's fourth credited in the movie.
Yeah, who's she?
She's Dave Seville's boss. She showed up for like 30 seconds.
What word did Matt
Great.
say?
Who's she? I thought she was one of the Chipmunks. I don't even remember her in the movie. I did a lot of cleaning
Juicy.
during this movie. But had you guys seen this movie before? Did you guys have any impressions of this movie? Let's talk about it.
I've had to watch this movie multiple times because my daughter loves the Chipmunks movies. I've seen all 4 of them more than once.
There's 4.
Oh.
This was a revisit for me and not a pleasant one.
Okay.
How long has it been since the last time you had seen it?
I mean, I've been lucky now that she's gotten older. She's kind of acquired more refined tastes in movies.
Such as?
I haven't seen this in like 4 or 5 years. She likes like the Disney Channel shows and movies.
Oh, so do you.
Well, yeah, that's why we watch them together.
A refined palate, Emily.
She's very refined.
No, I've never seen this movie, and I will never watch it again, probably.
I have also successfully avoided seeing any film from this franchise, and I do not feel bad about that.
I think I'd seen part of this movie and then I turned it off because I was like, wait a second, I'm not a child.
Matt, I know for a fact you've seen the Squeakquel because I forced you to watch it one time when we were
What?
having a bad movie marathon. Matt and I went on a long road trip together, and on a stopover in Chicago, we were hanging with a friend, and we decided to watch a bunch of bad movies, and I made Matt watch the Squeakquel.
Yeah, and I think I totally blocked this memory out.
As most bad movie marathons go. But
successfully.
Ben's held a lot of bad movie marathons with maybe we could post those someday with the playlists of the bad movies, but they are not enjoyable. I think I've probably been forced to watch more bad things with Ben than anyone else in my life.
Which is crazy because there's so many good movies out there and we don't have any good movie marathons.
And don't think that I'm only punishing you guys because I do these bad movie marathons by myself. I remember the worst one I did was Date Movie, Epic Movie, and Meet the Spartans, all 3 back to back.
Oh.
And we'll talk about Epic Movie because that's a 2007 one in the coming weeks, but it doesn't get much worse than that trilogy.
No, sir.
That Fred movie that you made me watch still haunts my nightmares.
YouTube's Fred?
Yeah.
That's not good?
All right, guys, we're done talking about those bad movies.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this bad movie.
Yeah, we have a bad movie right in front of us that we need to discuss. And fortunately, we will be provided with Chipmunk Facts throughout the entire film and our discussion. Thank you, Ben. So at the beginning of this movie, Alvin, Simon, and Theodore's tree gets cut down for a Christmas decoration for an office building. The Chipmunks escape the office building in Dave Seville's stolen muffin basket as he's leaving from failing to secure a deal with Jet Records. When a depressed Dave gets home, he discovers the 3 chipmunks, kicks them out since they're rodents, but then welcomes them back after he learns they can sing and talk. He plans for them to impress Ian singing one of his new songs, but they get stage fright and ruin his life. To make it up to Dave, the chipmunks later go to Ian's house and sing for him, leaving Ian to have money symbols in his eyes.
Okay, quick question. Last week we watched Live Free or Die Hard, and we talked about whether Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Is this a Christmas movie?
No.
Of course it is. They're Christian chipmunks. They love Christmas.
It doesn't happen on just Christmas. And it doesn't just lead up to Christmas. It goes beyond Christmas. And that's not Christmas.
I would say this is more of a Christmas movie than Die Hard. Do you agree or disagree?
I disagree because Christmas happens in the second act. And I have a problem with that. If it wants to truly be a Christmas movie, it better have Christmas and Christmas land in the third act. Because there's so much more that happened after they got presents and all that jazz.
Yeah, but the first act, they have the song where they sing the Christmas song, which is like the famous Alvin and the Chipmunks song.
I'm not buying it, Ben.
I just don't want it to be a Christmas movie ever. Speaking of that Christmas song, I actually have a memory of my mom playing that record from 1958. because she was an elementary music teacher for a ton of years. And so we would listen to a lot of elementary kids' music when we were growing up. And so I have a really good memory of listening to the Chipmunk song and him going, Alvin, even though I hated this movie.
There is video that exists of my brothers and I singing and dancing to this Christmas song by the Chipmunks.
Oh my God. Lip syncing?
No. Actual
Auto-tune?
singing. If only.
Can we
Actual
post
singing.
that?
If I can find it, I'm going to have to go through some old VHS tapes of family videos, but
Of course.
we'll see if I can find it.
Oh, I can't wait. How much do all of you know about the original Chipmunks and the history of the
That's
Chipmunks?
what I was actually just going to ask, because one of my first notes was, who the fuck is Dave? Like, what is his deal? What does he do? Why is he popular? Why does the girl thinks he gets around?
Right. I would have liked this movie a lot more if it was Dave Grohl. I don't know if you guys are with me on there.
I am with you.
I am super into that.
Yeah.
Okay. I would have been into that.
Oh man, we need to call somebody.
Wesley, the answer to your question, Dave Seville is the representation of Ross, and I'm going to mess up his last name, Bagdasarian Sr. Yes, there's a junior, a Ross Bagdasarian Jr. as well. And so he actually was a songwriter back in the 50s, and he made the first really famous song that sometimes gets confused with the Chipmunks, Witch Doctor. And he actually won 2 Grammys for engineering of it because he was able to speed up the playback for that high squeaky voice. And that in the 50s was a huge deal because they only had done that with comics and comedians and for funny records. And so then moving on from there, he kind of built this personality, David Seville, and then the Chipmunks. And they got together and they started singing the Christmas song.
So this isn't a cover then. I felt like Alvin and the Chipmunks were like a cover band, but these are some original songs.
That's what they've become.
Yeah, that's
Right.
definitely what they become. You know, in the 60s, they had their first initial The Alvin Show, and it didn't do well in the 60s, but it did a lot better after that, which sparked an 80s show called The Chipmunks.
Mhm.
I think. I don't remember what it was called. But essentially, Senior died, Junior took over as all the voices of the Chipmunks.
And actually, Junior is the singing voice of Alvin in this movie.
Yes, he is.
It wasn't Justin Long.
Oh,
It
I
was
thought it was
not.
Justin Long, and that ruins the movie for me.
Yeah, now it's ruined.
Why would they cast known actors in these Chipmunk parts when you could have just paid some voice actor scale and not paid for a name? I don't understand that.
Because it's Justin Long.
Wasn't this around the time they were just billing big ass names when they advertised?
Yeah, but they didn't bill. He was not billed in this movie.
Really?
Like, it wasn't like, come see Justin Long as Alvin. It was sold on Alvin and the Chipmunks, like that property rather than the actor.
Interesting.
Huh.
I'm going to guess that Justin's Long mom dressed him up in an Alvin
Justin's
costume.
Long mom.
Justin Long's long mom. Did anybody else really enjoy Dave's emo song? Like his initial pitch in the beginning of this movie, I thought was hilarious.
You know, it sounded like a Plain White Tees song, like a Hey There,
Oh my
Delilah.
gosh, I definitely thought that too.
Right. It would be great to see David Cross just be like, you guys suck. You know, you guys are terrible. Plain white tees. Get out of my office.
Yeah. I laughed too, Wesley, as soon as he started singing about death and despair. I'm like, oh, this is such a good song. It's so funny.
Yeah, I think that's about the last time in the movie until one point later, which we'll talk about in the second half, that I found enjoyable. But almost everything from this first half of the movie was gripes from me. Suspending your belief in what they are aware of and what chipmunks know coming into this world is insane to me. The fact that they can already read, they have brand recognition, they are able to hide in bowls and know if Dave is watching them. They're like I said before, they're Christian, so they love Christmas for some reason. Even to the one of the most disturbing ones, which was last one to the door is roadkill quote, when they're chasing down Dave's muffin basket. I thought that line was just super creepy. And just, again, being aware that what happens to them if they get run over by a car is called roadkill. I don't know. How did you guys feel about this? I know I always have gripes like this, but I felt like this one was exceptionally bad.
Speaking of all of your gripes, I very early on was really frustrated at that suspending disbelief of how did these chipmunks actually know stuff? When Dave is leaving, first off, he takes the muffin basket. Okay, whatever. And then I think Alvin's like, let's go in the muffin basket. And my note is, how does he know what muffins are? In all caps with 50 exclamation points under it. And then when Dave gets home, he throws the muffins away. And I wrote a big fuck this. And that's when I was done. I'm like, nope, I'm done.
What's his motivation for taking the muffin basket if he's just going to throw it away?
But that was the point of no return for me. That's like, okay, I have to suspend my disbelief, even though they're talking about like credit ratings and shit like that. I'm like, this is stupid. This is absolutely garbage.
And I don't know if this maybe leads us into our first chipmunk fact, but my first suspension of disbelief was I didn't think chipmunks really climbed trees or hid nuts in them. Like, that's more of a squirrel thing. Am I wrong?
You are wrong. They actually do store food for the winter. However, my chipmunk facts are all about how accurate this movie is in representing chipmunks.
Oh, no.
It's a little different than the B movie facts. So chipmunks are omnivores. They dine mostly on food found on the ground, which is why in Dave's house it gets wrecked and food is thrown all about because they're used to just eating off the floor.
I already hate that you're defending this movie.
In addition to that, chipmunks prefer subterranean living, which is why they get so comfortable in Dave's house, because the ceiling roof makes it feel like they're below ground.
That's a stretch. I hate this.
Nope, these are all accurate.
No, I'm not talking about the fact.
You can't dispute science.
You can't dispute this. Chipmunks require cold temperatures to hibernate. And with this being Southern California, this is why we don't see them hibernating around Christmas time in the movie.
Wow.
Clearly they had a scientist familiar with chipmunk behavior on set for the making of this movie.
Ben's smug face.
Chipmunks are known to be very vocal and talkative creatures using their sounds to communicate. If any animal is going to start singing, it's a chipmunk.
No, that's totally true, because my dog gets really annoyed with chipmunks constantly making noises. They are very vocal.
I can believe birds that actually sing.
They won't stop yapping.
There will be more chipmunk facts in Act 2.
Okay, beautiful.
Emily, you said you laughed at the song.
Well, like, internally I laughed. The only time I actually laughed in this entire movie, please, I'm so embarrassed, is when Simon ate Theodore's poop.
I underlined, put it in bold, emphasized, increased the font size, put a bullet next to it. He fucking ate poop. Was the note I took. That was so out of left field, disgusting, and just why? Why it was funny to me, though, is that he's like, no, it's totally a raisin, and puts it in his mouth. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just going to believe him. And the fact that I believed that it was a raisin for this movie, I like gave this movie more expectations or something. I don't know.
Oh. That's my 8-year-old's favorite part of the movie too. So,
dude, eating poop's funny. Come on.
Just poop in general is funny.
Right.
I mean, they do throw in an actual fart joke in this movie, so you kind of know what level we're working at.
And there are many.
This is not the first time that they've done a live action mixture with CGI animated characters, but I can't remember one that looked as ugly as this one, where the CGI in combination with the live action scenes just didn't look right, especially when Dave opens the dishwasher and you see the wet Alvin like just screaming. If you look at the shot from that scene, it is like the ugliest composite I've ever seen, where none of the lighting is right and the wet fur just looks terrible. They took no time to actually make an effort to make this look good for adults who are watching this.
You know, that's interesting, because I actually felt that the animation of the chipmunks when they were close up on them, like with their facial features, was actually really good. But when they were far away, you know, and running around, that's when, and interacting with the other humans and the things that were happening, that's when I felt like it wasn't as good.
I would agree with that.
Does your daughter have this same gripe now that she's refined her palate and tastes? Like,
this would have been a great episode to get Ellie on.
Yeah, because like my whole thing is like, this is a children's movie, so it's difficult to come in and then be like, as an adult watching this film, these are my problems, you know?
I tried to watch it with her this time, and she sat and played Roblox the entire time. So she might be just done with Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Right. She doesn't have a podcast.
Nah, right.
Not yet.
No, I did suggest that she could come on and replace Ben this episode, you know, to mimic the high squeaky voices of the Chipmunks, but you know, whatever.
I think my voice is high and squeaky enough.
Yeah, we'll fix it in post. Okay, so let's just move on. Let's get going here. So because of Ian, Dave and the Chipmunks, music quickly overtakes the world, and the singing rodents are an instant success. Child fame becomes an issue with Dave because of the conservative parent figure, and Ian, acting as the fun uncle, slowly uses toys and candy to woo the Chipmunks to abandon Dave and embrace the fame. Ian uses a misunderstanding to welcome the Chipmunks to his own home, but then overworks the three boys for profit until they lose their voices. Dave is upset with Ian and infiltrates their world tour debut concert, and the Chipmunks see Dave, realize he cares, ruins the concert, and escape from Ian, and they drive away happily ever after with their dad, Dave.
This movie is so devoid of plot that we couldn't even think of a 3-act structure for this movie. We had to tackle this movie in 2 acts.
And we probably could have just done one, honestly.
We probably could have.
I think Act 2 could have just been that epic montage where basically they evolve the entire history of the Chipmunks within, I don't know, 2 minutes. Like that was an impressive amount of story development just in a montage.
Big fan of seeing David Cross throwing money in the air because it kind of like, it was like art imitating real life, you know?
No, we don't. Can you talk about that?
No, I don't.
Oh, well, okay. So I don't think we've talked about this yet. Would we all agree that this movie is a cash grab? You know, it's just taking something that children know, and it's just kind of replicating it in a movie form.
I mean, when Alvin and the Chipmunks, like when this came out, did children know? Or is this more of a reintroduction to the product?
I felt that this was a reintroduction to the product to bring the parents that have that nostalgia, and even like the people that were younger adults, like all of you and 13-year-old Emily. We knew what Alvin and the Chipmunks were based off of all of the marketing and toys and
Christmas nostalgia.
There were even books. There were even like children's books with Alvin and the Chipmunks in them. And so like I knew what they were, and I felt like a lot of people did. So I think it was bringing in that whole nostalgia piece to market it to a new generation.
Mm-hmm.
So possibly a cash grab for that reason.
I think it's in the same way that most kids' movies are cash grabs. Like, make something that appeals to the young ones that they'll beg their parents to take them to the theater to see. I think most children's movies could probably be described as just a cash grab.
I don't know about that because there's a lot of children's movies out there that will satisfy the child and the adult. There's things for both, like Toy Story. And then, you know, we're going to get into this a little bit later, but Ratatouille, you know, there's a higher level of understanding, whereas this was kind of just like a blatant, you know, like world tour. Nothing has to make sense. You know, the Chipmunks are running around. They're eating sugar. They're having coffee. Isn't this fun? You know, like it didn't seem like there was a whole lot going on behind the scenes with the story.
I mean, Matt, you only listed Pixar movies, and I would agree that Pixar is typically the outlier when it comes to just making things that pander to a child audience. But children's movies as a whole tend to be more flashy, more developed towards people who have a short attention span, like a lot of quick moving, low plot, high energy movies.
What about Disney? You know, you have Lion King, you have, you know, Aladdin. I would push back on what you're saying there, but I understand kind of what you're getting at there.
No, I actually agree with you, Ben, because Matt, when you talk about Disney, those are the Disney classics. Again, it kind of links with the nostalgia of our parents and us, our generation, were really focused on that. And Disney has kind of re-amplified the classics, essentially, you know, with toys, with whatever sort of things that they have, like little shorts, I don't watch Disney cartoons or Disney, the channel. I know that you do, Ben. So I guess just even seeing some of my friends' kids sit around and they have me read them Cinderella, but it's the Disney version of Cinderella. Like they lose interest right away because it's too many words, too much story, but they like dressing up as Cinderella.
Yeah, I mean, I understand where you guys are coming from, but I'm picturing a lot of the newer Disney films like, you know, Big Hero 6, you know, Wreck-It Ralph, Zootopia.
Again, you're picking all Disney.
Yeah, Disney Pixar is the outlier here. Like there are a ton of animation studios that are not putting out quality children's films like Disney Pixar are.
Occasionally DreamWorks gets one right with like How to Train Your Dragon.
Right. Or Shrek.
Road to El Dorado.
But I don't know. This just has this low hanging fruit stench on the movie, and there's no higher overall structure to the story that I feel like appeals to adults, like a lot of these other films we've been talking about here.
Yeah. If there is a cash grab, though, it is in the actors who choose to take these roles, where David Cross is there for a paycheck. It is not because he believes in the quality of the content that he is creating.
Right.
I know Jason Lee signed on for this movie because they first offered it to Bill Murray and he said no. And Jason Lee was like, man, if they'll offer something to Bill Murray and then they'll offer it to me, like, I gotta take it.
I love that.
No.
Where did this come compared to Garfield?
This was a couple years after Garfield.
So Bill Murray was wise to the game.
Correct. Yeah, Bill Murray knew.
I love that because like I was doing a little bit of research on David Cross and the Patton Oswalt, which is a really funny story. But, you know, there were some comments where they were saying like Jason Lee was smart enough to take the script, take the part and shut the fuck up about it versus David Cross, who felt the need to kind of defend it and then get a little hurt when it came to some of the comments.
Well, that was because Patton Oswalt was offered the part, and so was someone else. And
Brian Posehn.
Right. He literally said that we threw the script out the window, and David Cross caught it. So David Cross felt like he had to legit defend himself and defend his part and be like, well, it was a paycheck, and here's the validity of this movie. And I know it was a bad villain, but I'm supposed to be a bad villain and be terrible and whatever. And so Patton Oswalt was like, wow, you were so long-winded.
Right. And it's actually funny because like Patton Oswalt was, I guess, referring to an inside joke between them. They were at Rafiki, which is a comedy show in New York where they had made that joke to each other before. And he was saying like, you know, they threw the script across the room and then this guy caught it, you know? So it's like, it's kind of funny that he was able to poke fun at him and then he missed that.
So I hate to segue here, but Tim Hill, the director of this movie, also directed Garfield 2. I want you all to quickly look up Tim Hill, the director, because I've never seen someone who more stereotypically looked like someone who directed Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Oh, I just got baseball references.
Nope, don't go the baseball player.
He looks like he's got curly hair, balding.
Oh boy, what is that facial hair? It's like a mixture of Tim Curry and
yes,
and
oh nice,
and like someone not
that pedo
Tim
stash.
Curry.
Yeah. He looks looks like an unkempt Tim Curry, like mixed with like an elf.
Yeah.
No, he looks like Tim Curry and Gerard Depardieu.
You know, you guys are dissing our Minnesota native here. That I'm not liking that. Tim Hill is representing Minnesota here.
One thing I wanted to talk about, we kind of mentioned it earlier, was the idea of nostalgia. Because I know we all get nostalgic for things. We were talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles earlier with costumes. Why do we feed into it so much with cartoons? Like for me personally, I have watched Adventure Time, Hilda, Rebels, Steven Universe, a bunch of anime, including My Hero Academia. Like they're newer cartoons, but I still get that nostalgia feeling in them. And I'm just curious, is this going to continue, or how will the nostalgia of cartoons evolve? Like, how are they going to keep on bringing us, our generation, into new things with kids?
It's a great question, because I feel like a lot of the newer animated cartoons are more adult. Like you said, Adventure Time. Like there could be an Adventure Time movie that would be in the same vein as what we've watched. Rick and Morty, that would be in the same vein of what was on the television show. So it's kind of interesting to think, because like I feel like because of the new media, a lot of these older cartoons and a lot of these different things, it's from a different time. So it's like I wonder if we'll have that, in the newer generations.
Yeah, I do think that a lot of the reboots and adaptations that we see come out of older cartoons for nostalgia purposes is actually just an example of Hollywood being lazy and relying on existing property rather than creating something new.
Mm-hmm.
I think people will always be nostalgic for the things that they grew up with because it reminds them of when times were simpler for them. You didn't have the responsibility of today. You didn't see the world for what it is. You kind of saw it for what it could be. So nostalgia will never go away, and it will always be capitalized on by people who make the creative decisions.
Yeah. Do you think you'll ever see like a Family Circus movie or
God, no.
a Calvin and Hobbes movie?
I mean, I would love a Calvin and Hobbes movie, but I was just thinking right now it seems like there's a higher demand for cartoons, but adult cartoons. Like you mentioned Rick and Morty, Matt. And so that's kind of what I was trying to formulate, and words were not coming out very well. There seems to be, especially with the Gen X and millennials out there, this high demand for adult cartoons. You've got BoJack Horseman, you've got Bob's Burgers, you have Rick and Morty, you have all these different cartoons out there. And I'm wondering, is that just this continuation of this nostalgia, like reaching for your childhood that's being lost? Or is this just another way of making money and elaborating on the medium of cartoons?
Yeah, I think it's just a natural progression in storytelling, where now that making cartoons has become something that's not such a process. Like old Simpsons cartoons used to take a year to animate. They are shooting out cartoons like South Park does them in 7 days. They are able to kind of turn over and tell stories now through the animated medium that they couldn't before, because cartoons used to be for children. But now as storytelling has kind of evolved and people are seeing that, hey, this animated medium can be used to tell like real stories about real things that affect people, like BoJack Horseman. That is a dark show that gets into some really deep shit. And I love that it does that, because you can't tell that story in live action. Nobody's going to accept a guy with a horse head in a live action show.
I'd like to see a live action Bob's Burgers, to be honest.
Oh, I thought you were going to say BoJack Horseman.
Wesley, do you feel that way at all?
I'm going to be honest. I went down a Gerard Depardieu rabbit hole.
I wasn't paying attention.
I ended up clicking on 5 wonkiest male celebrity noses. So that's where I'm at.
Jesus Christ. Do you have any more chipmunk facts for us, Ben?
Oh yeah, let me toss some more at you before we get done. I got a couple more.
Yeah.
So chipmunks are most active during the daytime and require 15 hours of sleep a day, which is why we see them get exhausted so quickly, as they're not accustomed to long nights of recording.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I know, right?
I really wish we had the video every time Ben. It's the visual equivalent of dropping the mic.
He pulls away and then he gives us a look, and we're like, "Yep, you dropped the shoe there.
He went there.
Sure did."
Chipmunks have large cheek pouches, which can stretch to 3 times larger than their head, which is why the animators made their cheeks so darn pinchable.
That was so terrible.
Oh, you just don't get it. You just don't get chipmunks like me and the creators of this movie do.
Can I tell you guys that I had it's called a Have a Heart chipmunk trap, because these are rodents that get into your garage and they fuck shit up. So we didn't have like a snap trap. We had one of those, like you put peanut butter in the center and then it like locks them down. And then we would take them, miles away to release them in like a park or whatever, because you don't want to kill something so cute.
I feel like that would actually kill it, though, because you're taking it away from all the things it was storing and away from possibly its family.
Yeah, but it had peanut butter. I don't know. It was one of those things that's like, you don't want to do a snap trap or a glue trap. Glue traps, by the way, terrifying. Have you guys ever had to do one of those before? Ugh, it's crazy.
Let's
Not
just
for a rodent, no.
What does that even mean?
Yeah. Do you have a human glue trap or something? Oh, okay.
Cockroaches.
Oh no,
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about like something
Your brother's
completely
bugs.
different. All right, I gotta review this. Okay, so this movie is a family film, perfect for some brainless child, but nails on a chalkboard for anyone over 10. The high-pitched modern singing of the Chipmunks is horrendous, and the acting of each character is overzealous and contrived. Although the Chipmunks are rendered to look adorable, the immature fart humor, countless boring pop culture references, and rambling plot make all that money put into that animation pointless. So my rating is only one broken eggshell left in Dave's fridge because the Chipmunks ate everything of substance.
I did read a chipmunk fact about what they eat, and since they are omnivores, they will eat birds and small mice. So those eggs, perfect chipmunk fact, they just like eggs.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, my review. I am not the intended audience for this movie, and for good reason, because I'm not won over by manic energy and poop jokes like Emily is. However, many children are, and I think this movie does a good job of knowing what it is at all times. Will that reflect in the rating I give it? No. 8 popped Tylenol out of 10.
Bad? That's bad.
I need to
score?
take 8 Tylenol to get through this fucking movie.
Oh, okay. Sure.
So that was less of a rating and more of a prescription.
Yeah, let me go next because I want to save Wesley for last, and because I didn't write a review for this movie. Because why? Why would you do that? Listen, David Cross told us not to watch Chipwrecked, the third installment in this film franchise, and this movie is just bad compared to a lot of the Pixar and Disney films you can watch. So I just go ahead and say watch Ratatouille. This movie sucks. 0 out of 5 stars.
So that's weird that David Cross said don't watch Chipwrecked, because of the Chipmunks movies, Chipwrecked is the one I enjoy the most. Because it actually tries to do something. Oh, it's still bad for sure. But it actually tries to tell a story that's unique, I guess.
Okay.
Whereas this just felt tedious to sit through.
All right, so short and sweet, it's a kid's movie, so it didn't have to make a lot of sense. I was very happy when they finally got their sweaters because it added some much needed color. 1 out of 3 sweaters with letters on them.
And there's our color report, folks.
Yep, gotta slip it in there. So before we get into our tournament deciding battle today, I'm going to roll a dice and let you guys pick
Fuck you,
one
Wesley.
of my 6 random chosen songs for one of the questions. Why the hate?
Die. It's a
Dice.
die.
You
You're
said
like,
dice,
every
it's a
time you're like,
singular.
I'm going to roll a dice.
Here, I'm just going to
Roll that dice.
Matt, you get to decide who gets to pick first.
Emily gets to pick first. Fuck you,
All right.
Ben.
Oh,
So these 6 songs are Bad Guy by Billie Eilish, Congratulations by Post Malone, Chandelier by Sia, Old Town Road by Lil Nas X,
oh God.
This Is America by Donald Glover or Childish
no.
Gambino. Or I thank you. I really like that one. Or Broccoli by Dram with Lil Yachty.
I'm just going to go with my gut. I'm going to pick Chandelier.
All right, Ben.
I'm gonna sign my own death certificate and take This Is America.
Oh,
Thank
I see. I
you.
knew you were going to pick that. And I'm like, I can't touch that right now.
Sorry,
can't do that.
I wanted Chandelier. That was my first pick.
So today we will finally crown the ultimate winner of this ongoing tournament.
Ooh.
Yeah, you guys excited?
I am.
Ben looks nervous.
I'm a little nervous.
Matt
Why are
looks
you
drunk.
nervous?
Yeah, I've drank a half a bottle
You
of
didn't
wine.
just write This Is America music video.
That's true.
Okay. As always, I will give 5 rounds of questions to our round 1 winners and let them squeak clever little answers in my ear until I've decided who will be the ultimate champion chipmunk. The winner of each round will get 1 point. Second place is going to get 0. I am more persuaded by the Simon answers, which is clever, and Theodore answers, which are funny. After the Alvin is declared, they will tell the Dave what part of a song that they have to record themselves singing with a chipmunk filter. So, Twitmunks.
Gross.
Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do this.
Since the Chipmunks are wildly famous, let's continue their cover music career with the songs you were just assigned. I want you to create a music video for the Chipmunks' new hit. And we're going to start this championship tournament deciding battle with Emily. And you picked Chandelier by Sia.
Yeah. Oh, I got all tingly all of a sudden. I'm all nervous. Okay.
That's the waffle.
Maybe. That's the waffle. The opening shot is revealed to be a chandelier reflected in a martini glass, and we pan back to see that we are in a forest of trees, all decorated with hundreds and hundreds of chandeliers. Alvin and Simon are sitting on a branch together looking down on poor Theodore, dressed with a giant Sia's hair wig and nothing else. He looks like Cousin It. Alvin and Simon are concerned about their brother, who is taken to being a raving partier, dancing like he don't care because he doesn't. We see Alvin and Simon try to convince Theodore to leave the forest, come back to society, take ownership of his alcoholism and dancing problems. But he only wants to dance and swing from the chandelier. Later, we see them leaving discouraged, hopeless. Theodore, in all his nimble glory, whips off the Sia wig that covered his whole body, and it is revealed a tiny Sia wig underneath, but no clothes. He is completely uninhibited now, so he starts swinging from the chandeliers on the trees, not knowing that he is actually knocking them down one by one, smashing them to the ground. He dances and twirls and swings in a frenzy as the music gets louder and louder and the trees fall in slow motion down around him. The aftermath. Theodore, passed out, laying in the wreckage, broken glass and fallen trees, alone, his wig askew.
Wow.
All right.
I don't know where this came from, guys.
I'm taking notes and big fan.
All right, Ben, and you picked This Is America by Childish Gambino.
I did.
So let's hear the Chipmunks music video.
Okay. This Is America music video for the Chipmunks would reflect the world that the Chipmunks know and reflect the way that they feel chipmunks are treated as a species. So the music video would begin with a shot of hundreds of live traps all filled with chipmunks. And as the first verse kicks in, all of the live traps open, releasing the chipmunks into the world. Our chipmunks are dressed in nothing as they sing about partying and dancing, which is what the world best knows Alvin, Simon, and Theodore for, and therefore stereotypes them for. As long as they are singing and dancing, they won't be treated like rodents. This is America. Look what I'm chipping up. In the middle of the music video, we begin to see the way that the wild chipmunks are treated, with exterminators and animal catchers chasing after the released chipmunks and the various kinds of inhumane treatment of animals that exists, all while our 3 chipmunks keep dancing and staying happy, trying to appease those with powers. Get your acorns, chipmunk! Get your acorns! The music video ends with our chipmunks being chased and caught after exhibiting quote-unquote wild animal behavior and forced to live behind bars as the video fades out. Various human backup dancers are dressed in chipmunk furry suits throughout and dance along with our boys.
Wow.
Oh my God, Ben. That could have been way worse.
You're telling me.
Ben, I did really like the puns. Very clever. You both really nailed, I think, the origin that you're building off of.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's making it super hard for me, because I think you both did really, really good. But I think what it's going to come down to is the world that Emily painted was a little more tangible to me. The tiny Sia wig under the big one also was very, very enjoyable for me to visualize.
When I came up with that, I was like, oh my God, Wesley better love that, because I love it and it feels very Wesley to me.
Yeah, I think there's a couple other reasons that is one of the few that tipped it over. So this first point's going to Emily.
Well done, Emily.
Thank you.
Question 2. Alvin and the Chipmunks, which were created in 1958, would be in their mid-50s this year. And since the average chipmunk has a life expectancy of only 3 years, it only makes sense that eventually they would need some fresh blood in their group. So before Theodore kicks the bucket from his cholesterol, I want you to choose a musician to jump into the Chipmunks group. I also want you to explain how the audition process goes, why they are chosen, and what they bring to the group. We're going to start with Ben for this one.
As we learned in the movie Pitch Perfect, every singing group of high voices needs someone capable of singing those low tones to help balance out the sound and take them to the next level.
Oh, no.
As the Chipmunks sit on the panel with Dave, interviewing new potential members, a man walks in and thrusts his resume confidently into the face of Mr. Seville. "Look at this resume," he raspily declares.
No.
Before them stands Chad Kroeger of Nickelback, with his mop of blonde hair, his coiffed facial hair that's always in line with the current trend, and his dead eyes. This is exactly who the Chipmunks have been looking for, someone to help balance them harmonically, but also someone who will party with them like an animal. This is a true rock star, is the only thought that can pass through the Chipmunks' heads as Chad assumes a power stance and informs them through song how he feels about photographs when he looks at them. Such lyrical insight
I hate this so much.
Such lyrical insight into the soul of a genius is not lost on our young Chipmunks. They recognize greatness and do not let Mr. Kroeger leave without signing him to a lengthy and exclusive contract, thus ending Nickelback's reign at the top of the charts and the bottom of Wesley's heart.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Man, you are really...
Playing with fire today.
Yeah, you're dancing with fire.
Because not even playing with fire, you're dancing with fire. Good sir.
Just like Theodore.
To force me to understand the points that you're making in the why, and also make me have to make those connections to Chad Kroeger is all right, Emily.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, hang on. I can't believe that Matt managed to hype my answer to this earlier in the podcast.
I was going to say, did
I
you do
know,
that on purpose?
right?
We did not plan that. When he brought
No,
up
he
Chad
did
Kroeger,
not.
I almost started laughing.
I did too.
I mean, it well segued. This is going to work out great, but still.
Man, I hope you come in with Dave Grohl now, Emily.
If it's not Beyonce.
I thought about it. I definitely did.
All right, Emily.
As the Chipmunks hit their 13th month age, they become angsty teen chipmunks. So they are now looking for some guidance on their brand new Angsty Teen Chipmunks album. They auditioned members from Green Day, Linkin Park, and 30 Seconds to Mars, but even all that eyeliner, black clothes, and chains aren't quite enough for the Chipmunks as they contemplate existence and meaning. It's not until Gerard Way, lead vocalist of My Chemical Romance, shows up do the Chipmunks' ears perk up. Gerard Way would walk in with his flowing locks, and the Chipmunks would immediately see a cool older brother figure that all three of them had always wanted. Instead of singing, Gerard sits down cross-legged with the trio as they sit in his lap, as he shares stories of his addiction, drug abuse, and life lived in depression and agony, but expressed through song. The boys will be enchanted by this real-world angst and listen to Gerard as he shows them his 2007 graphic novel called Umbrella Academy. The boys were entranced by this and love his songwriting too. He already fits perfectly into their little family, where Dave can be his dad too. It's exactly what they were looking for, an angsty older brother to help them grow as artists.
Very interesting answers.
I'm so excited for this next one, though.
So we are just going to move right on to Emily's most excited for question, apparently.
I really am.
Since we now have some other options to keep this legendary band rolling, let's get dark. Chipmunks in this version of the movie don't live past 2010. Alvin and his brothers are dead, and I want you both to describe their funerals. And Emily, we're going to start with you.
When loved ones die, we as a society need a caring and wonderful individual to bring us hope and teach us about death being a natural result of life, and that grief is okay. So who better to give a eulogy than Mr. Fred Rogers? Unfortunately, in 2010, Mr. Rogers had already passed, so the next best thing would be an Uncle Tom Hanks preview of his Mr. Rogers movie. After the Chipmunks died of natural causes at the old age of 3, their funeral would be broadcast as a very special Mr. Rogers episode so the whole entire world could be a part of their funeral, as they were international stars. Tom Hanks, dressed as Mr. Rogers, would sing us his song while changing into a sweater, And while putting on his tennis shoes, he would ask, "Have you ever felt sad? I was sad this week. It's okay, whatever it is that we feel." Then Dave would show up dressed as Mr. McFeely's substitute mail carrier, and he would deliver 3 tiny little coffins to Mr. Tom Hanks Rogers. The two of them would put the little coffins in trolley, waving them off to the neighborhood of make-believe for the Chipmunks to live out their dead days as taxidermied puppets living in make-believe, singing softly in their high-pitched voices as the program fades to black.
Oh.
There are some weird reactions going on. Can you put those into words?
Those are the words. Oh.
I don't want to say anything yet.
Ben?
The funeral's an intimate affair, with the Chipettes dressed all in black, with the exception of the veils over their face and their signature colors. Dave is dressed in a suit as he walks the old Nike shoebox containing the corpses of our deceased chipmunk heroes to the base of the oak tree that they love to sing beneath. It was just 2 days ago that the boys had fallen asleep waiting on the curb for the delivery of Dave's birthday present, only to be crushed by every right side wheel of the delivery semi as it pulled up. Their bodies were not fit for taxidermy or an open casket, although their monkish faith prevented such a thing anyways. As the Chipettes sing a somber a cappella rendition of Knockin' on Heaven's Door by Bob Dylan, Dave lowers the box into the hole and sets on top of the box a maple syrup-drenched waffle, the boys' favorite. Dave whispers to the box, "Daddy loves you," before collapsing to his knees and letting out a guttural, "Alvin!" With the formal funeral over, the Chipettes and Dave must now sit Chippa for 7 days, as is custom of the monkish faith. During this time, they are visited by all of the people whose lives they touched personally. Claire stops by to console Dave. Ian shows up with a basket of muffins. Dave's cousin Toby, the monk's caretaker in the Squeakquel, brings over a few lasagnas. Even Zoe, the now celebrity that they were chipwrecked with, stops by to reminisce. This doesn't mention the large number of backup dancers and recording artists they inspired, like Katy Perry, Beyonce, Rihanna, Taylor Swift, all of whom were also linked romantically to Theodore.
All right, so on to question 4, which is our debate style question today, where our contenders will have the chance to argue their opponent's answer while having to defend from their opponent's attacks. So in keeping with the current trend of recycling old ideas and making them new again for this new generation, which cartoon deserves a 2020 live action movie adaptation? Ben, you get to state your point first.
In order to be deserving of a movie adaptation, the cartoon must have a legacy, a following, and a unique story to tell that's relevant to the times. The Jetsons meets the criteria for all of these. The Jetsons was a space-age counterpart to the Flintstones, and while it never achieved the level of success of the Flintstones, it was popular enough to inspire a crossover with them, its own animated theatrical movie, and most recently, an animated crossover film with WWE. The Jetsons is consistently listed on lists of the top animated programs of all time and is lauded as being a tremendous predictor of the future. It predicted things like flat screen TVs, treadmills, tanning beds, things that are part of our culture now. With the Jetsons returning to the cultural landscape and finding a new audience with the WWE film, now is the time to make a live-action version. But I want mine to be a tongue-in-cheek commentary on the wholesomeness of the nuclear family. Except instead of setting it in the utopian world that the Jetsons occupies, I want the world they live in to be more dystopian. But I want the family still clinging to the same idealized optimism we see from them in the cartoon. This would provide a biting satire of the baby boomers' generation's aw shucks attitude toward our world going to complete shit because of them.
Very interesting. All right, Emily.
Static Shock, the 90s cartoon, should be made into a 2020 live action movie. Number 1. Virgil, the main character, is a positive portrayal of a young black superhero that can manipulate and generate electricity. Number 2, the cast is already diverse, including the antagonists, in which their qualities aren't defined by their race, but rather their worth and character that happens to be a certain race. Number 3, the sheer volume of popularity. It is obvious that people of color want to put money into superheroes of color projects. Like, if you looked at Kickstarter, have you looked at Black Panther? There's an obvious market for it right now. Number 4, weirdly enough, audiences still want more superheroes. I don't get it. But they are hungry for something with a little bit more depth than what the majority of the MCU is providing. For example, Virgil can engage with really complicated issues in his life. His daytime self reflects the more systemic oppression issues in his education. Then his nighttime self deals with the issues of young Black folks getting involved with gangs. 2020 is the time to highlight already existing works of people of color. Versus the Jetsons, like you said, Ben, they need a lot of work rewriting this utopian life to a relatable 2020 world of sci-fi movies. That middle-class nuclear family isn't what people want, and even a commentary on it isn't what people want. That's something that actually already has been done many times over. There's actually a comic that was written in 2017 that was all about this. And so we already have that. And also the idea of Archie comics being put as Riverdale. We don't need this gritty iteration of the Jetsons or of Archie in those kind of 50s, 60s era. What we have now is something that deserves to be out there for the teenagers of our Black community. Also, last point, you said that it was a unique story. It's not a unique story. The Jetsons are not unique. They were literally idealized as the middle-class nuclear family. Jane as a homemaker, and George complaining about working for an hour, 2 days a week.
Okay, Ben.
So you're right. The Jetsons as a cartoon is not unique. However, my spin on it is because of the way that I am setting it in a dystopian future rather than a utopian future. And while it's a lot of work to adapt any story. Setting Static Shock in current times would also be a lot of work. So let's not discredit work as a reason that this couldn't happen. Now, Static Shock would be a positive Black superhero. However, I don't trust DC to be able to handle anything with nuance. This is probably going to run through the Zack Snyder realm, and he cannot handle female or minority characters. More depth than the MCU is probably needed. You're right. Black Panther made a lot of money. However, 2020 is not the time to be putting money into old properties. Now is the time to be putting money in the hands of Black people so that they can make original content that is made by Black people for Black people. This would just be white people pandering to Black people. Plus, I had never heard of Static Shock. Although I remember hearing about it growing up, it has never once been talked about by anyone I know other than when you brought it up for this question. So the question is, who is this for? Nothing Static Shock related has been released in the past 15 years. It has completely passed out of the cultural zeitgeist and has minimal nostalgia pull to it. This seems like DC's attempt at recreating the success of Spider-Man, but with little success. With little success also being the mantra of DC's film universe thus far. This seems like a huge bomb waiting to happen. Just because he's Black does not mean he's going to sell tickets.
Emily.
I would just like to say the fact that you said you had never heard of it is the reason that this needs to be out in the public's eye. That this show deserves way more than the Jetsons in a dystopian life. For example, how does a 14-year-old Black superhero vigilante try to better the community during this day and age with police brutality? So the fact that you have never heard of it, this show deserves it way more because you haven't heard of it.
Let's get into this, the very last. And now is your final chance to potentially score that winning point to win this entire tournament. Yay! No pressure. So as always, question 5, I want you to pitch a reboot, prequel, or sequel for Alvin and the Chipmunks. And this time I want you to both include a famous cameo who will only get one line of dialogue in this movie.
Okay.
So Emily, you get to go first.
In Alvin and the Chipmunks, we learn that the Chipmunks' birth mothers live with the hippies now, which is why Dave adopts them. But we don't know anything else about their parents or the origins of their musical talent and knowledge of humans. It really fucking bothered me. Therefore, this prequel will be a story about Vinny, their mom, and Irwin, their dad, and their escape from NIM, the National Institute of Mental Health, where humans do dangerous experiments on rodents, including rats, mice, and chipmunks. This movie will be a thriller/horror explaining the mental traumas of the animals more in depth than the movie Secret of NIM. It's kind of a sequel of Secret of NIM as well. It'll be done in flashes of vibrant colors and a smoky haze to replicate the effects of the drugs and torture on the rodents. Leading up to the massive breakout will be a scene where Bill Nye will show up with his film crew to feature their research on the Way Cool Scientist segment of the show. With this distraction, the rats, mice, and chipmunks will attack their torturers, all of it captured on shaky cameras with snippets of biting, scratching, and screaming. On a close-up of a rat, he says, "Get this camera out of my face!" Punches it. Yes, the rat punches the camera. We do a quick cut to Bill Nye's face on camera, blood trickling down his cheek, and he whispers, "Science rules!" Although many rats and mice will make it, Irwin is gravely injured and dies. Vinny realizes she's pregnant, and when the boys are born, Vinny copes with her mental trauma and the death of her husband by singing songs she heard on the radio from the lab. When they are finally old enough to open their eyes, she tells them she's going to join their father and live with the hippies. Although she doesn't tell them, this means she will be joining their father permanently. So I call this Return to Nim, the horror story behind how the Chipmunks learned to sing and talk.
Okay. All right, Ben. Let's hear your movie.
So the Chipmunks are living an idyllic life with Dave and the stardom and money that their music careers afforded them, until one day Dave turns up missing, and in his place is a ransom note demanding money and the opportunity to meet the Chipmunks. The Chipmunks, completely rattled, head to the local police office to get help. However, the police turn them away because they refuse to help non-humans. The Chipmunks know that they cannot hope to find Dave on their own, so they seek the help of a local private investigating team. Folks, this is a Chip and Dale crossover movie. Our rescue rangers, Chip, the adventurer and no-nonsense leader, and Dale, the free spirit, agree to take on the assignment, and with the help of their friends Monterey Jack and Gidget, set off with the Chipmunks to track down Dave and find out who is behind this. After much undercover work, they find out that it was actually a gang of bubonic plague-infected squirrels who have kidnapped Dave and wanted to meet the Chipmunks so that they could infect them prior to them going on their world tour. The squirrels have world domination in mind and biological warfare as their preferred weapon. My film will feature a cameo by internet sensation Dramatic Chipmunk, who 3 times throughout the movie will show up to make his dramatic face, dun dun dun, with the 3rd time being the reveal that now he has a mustache and a monocle, and he has been the one financing the squirrels the entire time.
Wow.
My movie is Alvin and the Chipmunks Rescue Rangers.
You sound really excited about that title.
Is there a hyphen or is that a colon?
It's a colon and a hyphen. and another hyphen and another hyphen and then a close parentheses.
Oh wow. So
Isn't
it's
a
a
colon
smiley
and a
face.
hyphen?
It's like a really
It's not a smiley face.
really skinny penis.
That's correct.
Yeah.
All right, so to recap, we had question 1 describing a music video for the Chipmunks. Emily won with her answer for Chandelier by Sia. And question 2, talking about who would enter the band and talking about their audition process and what they bring to the group. Ben, again, I have to respect the balls to throw Chad Kroeger at me while I'm deciding the winners here. So I forced myself to try to not think about it too much, because you did give really good answers, which I said already. But the low tones balancing out the high pitch Chipmunks, I think, was a really good point. A true rock star, which that's where I had to distance myself from the person. Ending Nickelback, I don't even think actually is a good point, because it's still Chad Kroeger. I would rather Nickelback continues without him.
Wow.
Chad Kroeger is my only dislike of Nickelback. I don't care about their guitar section.
Oh, okay.
Oh, interesting.
Emily, you had also a really good answer. I like the angsty teen going along with the Chipmunks growing older and kind of their progression, bringing angst to the real world, and him sharing the stories of depression and drug use, which I kind of wish that the Chipmunks would experience themselves. And I also don't know if that angsty punk would be really a Chipmunk style, where I could see rock and roll being more on brand for the Chipmunks. So I went with Ben for this one. We are skipping number 3 because that was the hardest one for me to figure out the answer to. So we're going to do 4 and 5 first. So question 4 was the debate, where we are talking about bringing a new live action movie from a cartoon in the past. This one was also close. I mean, like, they're all really close. Ben chose the Jetsons. I like that you set up right away. Legacy and following is what you need both of to deserve a remake. I really like the more dystopian versus utopian, the satire of a baby boomer generation. Emily, unfortunately, none of us had really heard of Static Shock, which was one of your points, that because none of us had heard of it, that's more of a reason that this should be remade than the Jetsons. I think what this one came down to the most was Ben's attacks against you, and your defenses, Emily, were a little more. You didn't address most of them. I would have liked to hear more about Ben's attack of it being a DC property, which I agree is a definite minefield that they would have to work around with being successful and how they deal with people of color. For the 5th question of remaking the movie, Emily, you went with what I'm going to call an origin story, where we learn more about the Chipmunks' birth mother and father, and the science experiments, the Bill Nye quote, and just Bill Nye in general, who has a special place in my heart, I think was a great choice. And I really like the idea of getting that origin story to what we had kind of hinted at in the top of the episode, where we had to suspend so much disbelief because what the hell? I would really like to have a little bit more of an answer for that. Ben, I don't know. And not a lot really stuck with me for this one. The Rescue Rangers crossover. It was interesting that you both did choose to make crossovers with other rodents stories. Was kind of funny. I get it. I probably would have done the same thing. There's a lot out there, which actually was kind of interesting to think about too. Like it made sense as a story, Ben, but I think I want to see Emily's more because, again, I want to see that origin story and more of the reason for it. So giving that one to Emily as well, which puts us at 2-2, which is why I wanted to do question 3 last, because we literally had to go back and discuss it at length because this one was very, very, very,
very difficult
for a lot of reasons. So the question again was describing the funeral, short and sweet. Emily started this one off with talking about how funerals can be taught out as a way to understand death is natural and compassion, using Mr. Rogers or Tom Hanks to broadcast this internationally because they are such huge stars. The quote, have you ever felt sad? I felt sad this week was really good. Dave showing up with 3 small coffins was very visceral, and I think was super, super interesting. The part where it kind of went off the rails and you called it out in the moment, when I loved even up to the point where Dave is putting them on the trolley and they go to the land of make-believe and is waving is amazing. And then the last sentence of imagining their post-mortem
taxidermy.
Yeah, that's the word. Post-mortem taxidermied bodies being forced to dance in the land of make-believe is really...
I didn't say dance.
You said used as puppets.
Yeah, they're taxidermy puppets singing softly in their high-pitched voices.
Mm-hmm.
I guess in my mind, all like marionette puppets are dancing, whether it's just walking or not.
These aren't marionette puppets.
No, they're hand puppets. They have to go up the backside of the chipmunks inside of them.
Okay. So yes, you are correct. You didn't say dancing, but still having their...
I was honestly really surprised that none of you laughed at my Tom Hanks. Like, I did all of this for comedic purposes. And I was like, no one's laughed yet. No one's laughed yet. No one's laughed yet.
This is very moving.
Yeah.
When we were discussing it at length, we were like, wow, that was really heartfelt. And you know, that went really well.
See, that's really funny because I was like laughing my ass off. Like, God, I can't believe they haven't laughed yet. And then I get to that and I'm like, what is wrong with you guys?
Because it was so good. And then all of a sudden we're like, oh, forced with the reality of not life after death. I don't even know how you would describe that.
I mean, the program fades to black. It's unresolved. You don't know if they're alive or not.
My whole thing is like, I think of King Friday as a real puppet, like a real live puppet, you know. But then
live puppet. Let's think about that. That's.
But then to picture 3 dead chipmunks, like that's what it's like. They were alive and now they're dead, but they're going to live with King Friday. So I don't. It was very. That's why we were like, mouth ajar. Like, so you painted this wonderful picture for us, I think, and then the very last line was like, "Hey, they're taxidermy now." And
Anyway, so Ben, you also did a really good job of painting a picture. The old Nike shoebox I thought was really good. Sitting Chippa. Come on. That's just really funny. You really did a good job of tying in the entire universe of the Chipmunks. And my favorite of that being the dating history of Theodore. I think you built a more clear world and had a unique death. So that was the tiny hair of a sliver that pushed this one over for Ben. So with that, the grand total being 3-2 in favor of Ben this week, who is somehow still our champion.
We don't like it. We don't like it.
I don't like it. I'm not doing this on purpose. He made me think about Chad Kroeger. I don't like that. So, Ben.
Yep, I'll have to pick out just a filthy song for Emily to sing in a chipmunk voice, and we'll get her recorded on that and put it up on our social media.
God, the way you made that sound was so disturbing.
Why is that?
I don't know.
Just filthy.
Well, hopefully next week will be better. We're doing 300, right?
We are. Next week, we are doing 300, and we are having Emily's husband, Corbin, on.
Yay!
And next week, we are having our first tag team Battle of Twits, where it will be Emily and Corbin versus Matt and I. Ooh. So Emily will have an opportunity to get a little bit of revenge on me for this week.
I'm going to throw.
Throw as in throw down, or throw as in throw the match?
Throw the match. I don't want you to lose.
You can't say that on record.
No.
I don't think, Matt, I don't think you need to try.
No, how dare you?
So join us next week for that tag team Battle of Twits. Thank you to those who have listened all the way through. Please share us with your friends. Give us a rating and contact us on social media if you want to just get in touch with us. And thank you for listening. Bye.
Bye.